Welcome to episode 9 of the Jeff and Nick Show. I am Nick. Jeff,
What's up,
hello.
everybody? What's up, Nick? How's it going?
Good, good. Big week coming up. We got the 49ers Rams game on Sunday. I'll
That's
be
right.
there. Will you?
I will not. No, I'll probably be at my kid's soccer or something. Plus, my dad's coming to town. It's actually his birthday, so that'll be nice. Be able to see him on his birthday. So
There we go.
we'll
Happy
we'll
birthday to
watch.
Mr. Hester.
Thank you.
Yeah, you get to watch the game, which we don't get to watch too many games
No,
with them being on the same time zone as the Rams.
yeah, two in a row. We
Um,
got to they were on TV last week too. So two in a row this week.
that they
This
were.
this year.
Yes. All right, starting off with Mound Visits, episode 9. Actually, before we get to Mound Visits, Jeff, do you have a favorite player that has ever worn number 9?
Geez, are you gonna ask me this every week? I got to think of number 10 next week. Number 9. Jeez, I can't even think of a number 9.
I'll go
I
Nick
probably
Van
miss.
Exel.
Oh yeah, I would have never got that. I probably would know if I saw one. I'd be like, oh yeah, I like that guy. I can't think of one off the top of my head. 10 should be
No,
easy. I got some
10,
10.
10's very
10,
easy
10
for
maybe,
me.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, 10's very easy for me, but number nine's kind of tough. Um, I don't know. I like throwing out those questions to see, to catch you on your toes.
Yeah. I
But
don't, I don't, I don't have a number 9.
all good. Mound Visits, just going over what we had talked about last week. Mark Grace was the starting first baseman for the Cubs in 1998. Uh, when Babe Ruth hit that home run, he was the first person to shake Mark McGwire's hand.
Yep.
Million Dollar Arm was filmed in 2014, but the team that we had that was playing in the Laker game had Jordan Farmar on it, and Jordan Farmar's last season on the Lakers was 2008, so they must have pulled that clip from an earlier season.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, probably filmed, but had to take place on that certain year, right? So that was probably, yeah, they probably pulled those clips from, was it 2009 when that actually happened? So, yeah.
yeah, 2008, 2009. Um, Filming began in 2012, but they started the training in 2008 with
Mm,
Rinku and Dinesh. And two more things that I have from Million Dollar Arm. Did you know that Rinku Singh is now in the World Wrestling um, in
Oh,
WWE?
I did see that. I forgot about that though. I forgot to write that down. I do remember looking that up and seeing him that he's a wrestler now. That's awesome.
Yeah, he's a monster. He's huge.
Yeah.
Somebody brought that up to me yesterday. They said, "Did you know he's a wrestler?" I had no idea. Let me look this up. Yeah, and then I had said Popo was Lofa Tatupu, who played at USC, but it was Ray Malauga, one of the linebackers from that USC team that had 4 All-American linebackers on its
Great.
squad, with Clay Matthews being probably the best of those 4.
Yeah. Is that Troy Polamalu too? That in that time? Or was that
No, Troy
beforehand? That
graduated
was.
with Carson Palmer.
Oh wow! I didn't realize. Oh yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, back in the early
Yeah,
2000s. Then yeah, right
yeah.
on.
Do you have anything from Million Dollar Arm or from
The rookie. I
Rookie?
don't really have anything except that my wife reminded me that I didn't tell my Dennis Quaid story. I have a little Dennis Quaid story. It's not that great. It's a a sighting. When we first moved here, we were out at we went out to breakfast at a place called Patrick's Roadhouse up in what do you call it? Not Palos Verdes, the Pacific Palisades area up there past Santa Monica. And we're walking in, and this dude's sitting there and looking right at him. I'm like, oh, that's Dennis Quaid. Oh, that's cool. Cool sighting. It's a pretty good one. Then we sit down, and then he's still just sitting there, like drinking coffee. And then all of a sudden we see, oh, hey, look, there's Meg Ryan walking in with like 2 kids. They were doing a kid exchange, because they were already separated at that point. And yeah, they were doing a little kid exchange there, and they met at the Patrick's Roadhouse where we just happened to be, and kind of looked over and didn't really say anything to him, but that was kind of a funny story that my wife reminded me that I forgot to tell. So saw them, Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid, long time ago, exchanging exchanging kids for the weekend, or maybe she was giving them back or something like that. It's kind of funny.
One of the two. Yeah, I had no idea that they were together or engaged or anything like that. So that's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
they were together
Um,
for a long time. I believe they were together for up until when she I think she got with like Russell Crowe or something when they did that Proof of Life movie back in like, oh man, 2000, 99, 2000, somewhere around there. Um, yeah, they were up until that point. I think they were together throughout like the 90s.
Nice. Yeah, she's amazing. She's done so many movies. You know, When Harry Met Sally is one of them, but she did one. God, she did one. It wasn't Black Hawk Downwood. It was before that that she was really good in.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. it's not, yeah, I can picture it. Not Black Hawk Down, but it was a war movie, and she was like a pilot, I think, right? I know exactly what
Yeah,
you're talking about. I
she
just
was a
can't think of
helicopter
it.
pilot that went
Yeah.
down. Yeah, the one thing that I have from the rookie is, well, two things actually. Tampa's first year was '98, so Jim Morris was on that inaugural
Mm.
Tampa Bay team, and then Ted Williams' Hall of Fame speech, just a part of it. He says, "And I hope that someday the names of Satchel Paige and Josh Gibson in some way can be added as a symbol, the great Negro League players that are not here, only because they were not given a chance."
Mm. It's great.
So, to me, Ted Williams just personified that aura of not only was he a great hitter, but also a great person.
Yeah.
And especially in that time, in a time where you you weren't allowed to sit in the same table as a black person or anybody of color, and the amount of things that you learn about these people during their speeches, it goes to show you the kind of character that he had as a player and then after his playing days.
Yeah.
So,
Couldn't said it better. Couldn't said it better myself.
all right, we are going to start with Pride of the Yankees. This movie was filmed in the 40s. You can definitely tell based on the music, based on the black and white. One of my kids walk in, they go, "Dad, is this an old movie?" It certainly is.
That's
Is this
right.
how stuff looked back then? Yes, yes, it did. You have Gary Cooper playing Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth as himself. Jeff, I think this was the first time that I've seen this movie in a very long time. Was this the first time you've seen it?
This is the first time I have seen the movie. Yes, this was the first. Never seen it before. I knew about it, obviously, but no, I had never seen it before, um, and I really liked it. I love old movies. I am a, I love all films of all, all years, and I appreciate these old timey ones. That's how they were doing it back then. Gary Cooper is, one of the original, Hollywood superstars. One of the original, like the Brad Pitt, the George Clooney, like those guys of his day. Like that was him. He was the debonair, leading man, the quintessential All American leading man, which is I think one of the reasons that he was able to play Lou Gehrig on a personal level. The baseball the baseball
Not so
athleticism, it
much.
leaves a lot to be desired there. That's for sure. And I actually looked up a bunch of that stuff, and he tried. He definitely tried. I think I was reading that he spent like months behind his house throwing and catching and swinging, just to get it to be to be that good. I have it down here that he wasn't even on a baseball field until Gary Cooper never even saw a baseball game until this movie, until he was like cast in this movie. So basically had no idea about baseball at all. But he's such a good actor. He could play. I don't know. He could play Batman, for God's sakes. Gary Cooper. He's so good at everything. It's a really good. It's touching and it's moving. You know, story about a man, Lou Gehrig, who, for all intents and purposes, was a great human being. Um, he's a very likable person. You get that feeling about that. He's, he loves his mother, he loves his wife, he loves his family, and he wants to do good by them, and he just wants to play baseball, and live a good life and help people. I didn't really know much about Lou Gehrig. It's really kind of opened my eyes and made me want to learn more about him and the life that he lived that was so tragically cut short with the disease that now bears his name. So, really like the movie. I'm guessing you do too. I know you're a big Lou Gehrig fan. What's your thoughts on it?
This movie was really good. I think it was one of those where I hadn't seen it and I knew what I was up for because I like classic movies as well. Just because the cinematography, everything was done so wholesome. I think the one thing that you can see in this movie is when they're kissing, their faces are like smashed together.
Yeah.
And so, when Lou and Eleanor are kissing, it's one of those where that it's a facade. But I really like this movie. I One of the first books that I remember reading was a movie about Lou Gehrig, and just becoming more involved in what he was about. Because you hear about
Mm,
Babe Ruth. Yeah, Babe Ruth was 1A, but Lou Gehrig was 1B. Like, there's no Murderer's Row without Lou Gehrig.
hmm.
And the amount of things that he had done in his career, without a shadow of a doubt, like, I think we talked about this in one of our first episodes, he was 7 home runs short of 500 home runs.
Hmm.
Uh, but just dealt a hand that he couldn't come back from, and when Gary Cooper starts to show the how ALS started to set in. You
Yeah.
could tell that he wasn't trying to put it off any other way. His body was basically breaking down on him, and you lose your muscle mass, and now it's now called Lou Gehrig's disease because he's the most famous person ever to have had this. But I really liked his relationship with his mom, with his dad, um, with his wife. Calling him Tanglefoot, that was a funny bit. Um, I did I did see how the mother and the father, their portrayal from being from the old country, from
Hmm.
Germany,
Germany.
was
Yeah.
very set. It was they always wanted to be involved. They wanted to have a say in everything, and he wasn't very far. He went to Columbia. That wasn't very far from his home because his mother worked there.
Yeah.
Columbia's in New York City. But then the biggest thing that I did like is that his mom gets sick, and instead of them struggling to figure out how they're going to care for her, he goes out and signs that contract with the Yankees. Like,
Yeah.
oh, Louie, how are they're treating me like I'm royalty here. Well, they should, Ma. You know, they
Yeah.
should.
They should.
And she had no idea what was going on.
Yeah,
And
she wanted him to be an engineer. That was her big thing. You need to be an engineer. Enough of this baseball. That's, it's a kid's game. She wanted her boy to be an engineer, like his Uncle Otto, right? Wasn't the Uncle
yeah,
Otto
like
that
Uncle
wanted
Otto. And
like Uncle
so,
Otto? And then I love at the
yeah,
end how she completely flips at the end. He's like, oh, maybe I'll stop playing baseball. I'll become an engineer like Uncle Otto. And she's like, what do you mean you're gonna stop playing baseball? You're the best player in the world, my son, the greatest Yankee. Like, how could you stop? I love how she flipped there and really took to him playing and really loved how much joy he got out of it and that she took joy out of that too. Yeah, I really love their
Otto
dynamic they
Schmato.
had. Otto Schmott,
Otto Schmato.
yeah.
Anybody can dig a grave.
Yeah,
Um,
anybody can take a crave. Yeah, seriously, that was good. Um, yeah, Babe, you mentioned Babe Ruth there. Yeah, he was so great. He was amazing in that. I never really seen much of him like acting, but I thought he was great. I thought, coming in, playing himself, hamming it up a little bit, playing almost like a, characterized version of himself. But I thought Babe Ruth was really good in this movie too. It was fun to see him play around and be playful with the guys and everything like that. I thought that was kind of cool. Exactly. I feel like that those things actually happened. You know what I mean? Like he's just like, yeah, this is what we did. And this is exactly what it was like in the locker room. I like that little touch. So
yeah, I agree. There were some quotes in this that I really liked. In this country, you can be anything you want to be. Let's see. Lou was just a guy who did his job and nothing else.
yeah,
Went to work for over 2,000 straight days over the span of 15 years. Um, he tells the kid you can do anything if you try hard enough, and then before he gives his speech, the kid comes back, Billy. And the kid comes back. He
yeah,
goes, "Look,
that was good.
Mister Gehrig," and that it tugged at my heartstrings. I didn't cry as much as I thought I would. I did get a little teary eyed, but it's this movie to me was as advertised. Pride of the
Yeah,
Yankees. This guy was was a captain of the Yankees. Very well deserved. Showed up to work, did his job, didn't give you any back talk,
no.
and that
And
he
no,
was
no, no scandals. There's no scandals. There's no front page things. And people don't like that. You know what I mean? I wrote down here. It's kind of like like Steph Curry in basketball. People want to hate on him, like or even like Tim Tebow. Remember Tim Tebow? Like people who are good people and who play sports, that's not something they're used to. People are genuinely good and do good for the community. They're not out there partying all night and making headlines because they're at the clubs and things like that. They're genuinely good people who happen to be amazing at their sport. Tim Tebow, amazing, maybe not the right word for him as a NFL quarterback, but an amazing college player. But you know what I mean? You get what I'm saying here? Like I almost compare them, personality wise to Lou Gehrig. Kind of, I don't know about boring, but they're there to get the job done. I mean, LeBron, even, I mean, you can almost throw that same category. No, there's no scandals with LeBron. There's no scandals with Steph, Tebow, or Lou Gehrig. They were larger than life players who went and did their job day in and day out at the top of their profession. And, and it's something that kids can look up to where you don't have to, a parent doesn't have to justify, be like, okay, well, like, I don't know, someone like, even like Kobe. Let's say you use Kobe as an example. Like, yeah, he was great, but at the same time, he did have that, that rape
that blip
accusation
on his
thing. But
exactly.
yeah, he's got that, and that's he has to live with that. And he has to deal with that and everything like that. And you have to tell your kids that this is something that he was accused of doing and everything. But you don't get that from these guys, and I really like that. And I like that it wasn't they didn't try to find anything wrong with him or try to play up a bad angle. I mean, the worst thing, he chose his wife over his mother, and that's not even a bad thing. You know what I mean? Like that was really the only conflict he really had was, his wife and mother weren't getting along. So I really like that, like you said, a guy who does his job and nothing else. How much more can we ask for?
I did like the part where Eleanor, the journalist name was Sam, right?
Yeah,
He comes over. He's like, "Where's Lou? Have you seen Lou?" No, I haven't seen him. What do you mean? He's usually on time. Well,
yeah.
he's late. This is must be the first time. It's the fourth. And
Oh yeah,
as she's
yeah.
driving him, she's smiling, talking to. I can't believe it. I'm gonna take a baseball bat and break his head open. And then they pull up, and he's playing ball with these kids,
Oh great.
and she's just got that look on her face, like
Yeah,
this is exactly what I want out of my husband.
yeah.
If he's not at home with me, if he's not at the field, he's playing ball with these kids
He's out in
to
the
make their
community.
day brighter.
Yeah, out in the
Yeah,
community with his community, doing stuff for others. Yeah, it's
exactly.
refreshing to see. Yeah.
So he was a two-time MVP, seven-time World Series champion, won the
Wow.
Triple Crown. And for anybody who is unaware of what the Triple Crown is, you're leading the league in average, home runs, and in RBIs.
Hmm.
He finished his career with 493 home runs. I know I mentioned that. His batting average was 340 for his
Dang.
career, 340 hitter, and he finished with 2,721 hits in 2,130 games.
That's right. That's right. I
Yeah,
like the Wally Pip call out there. Nice little shout out to old the Pipster at the very beginning. I also, when I was kind of looking up kind of doing the research on this movie, I found the original New York Times article for when he missed his game, written that night or the next day, and obviously no mention of what do you call it of the disease yet, but they mentioned a bunch of like competitive decline. That's air quotes for anybody on Spotify. Air quotes competitive decline, and basically the author of the writer of that story was like, oh, well, Lou Gehrig realized himself he's in a competitive decline and he needs to sit and need a breather for a few days to get his head back in a mentally state where he can hit again. And it said something about like his defense has been lagging, so the guy they put in is better defense. Obviously, little did the author of that article know that he had ALS, but that was interesting. Kind of see that the Times. It was just kind of like, oh yeah, he took himself out because he wasn't feeling it. He felt him the next guy up would have been a better player for that day. So of course, always giving Lou a day. Just writing that, knowing what kind of person he is, that's the kind of conclusion that they would come to instead of oh my god, this guy's got a life threatening disease. So
and they had
that
no
was
idea. The only people
yeah
that knew were the doctor, the writer, and his wife.
yeah
Of course, and
yeah.
himself. Where does this movie break your top 10?
Um. Yeah, I would say so. I think I think now based on last week what we did, rookie and $1 Million Arm, I think it's above those. I think I'd put it above those two. And I think those were honorable mentions at least. So I'll go above those, maybe honorable mention 10, somewhere around there. I feel like I've said that like 8 times now for number 10 honorable mention. But yeah, I would say probably lower down the list, maybe just out honorable mention. But yeah, I think over The Rookie and Million Dollar Arm, I think. It's just a classic movie. Gary Cooper, can't go wrong.
right? Just like Gary Cooper. This movie to me, it's definitely honorable mention status. I did like it. The baseball part of it, I wasn't necessarily a fan of, but I did like the human element. I did like the storytelling. I loved the music, how it played into everything, how they used "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" in almost
Yeah.
every segment that they could, which
Yeah.
to me was great. I love this movie. I thought it was great. It definitely took me a little bit to kind of watch, just because I knew, having read the book, I knew what was going to happen. I knew, you know, the story, you know, the
Yeah.
ending, and you know what to expect. But give it the chance that it deserves, because it is an amazing movie to tell you about somebody who you may know about, but you don't know the backstory to him.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a great movie. It's as uplifting as it is sad. You know, it's just a good look into his life and of what a great and not just showing what a great ball player was, but a great person he was.
and that will transition us into our next movie, Chasing 3000. That movie was released in 2010, starring Rory Culkin and Lauren Holly. Um,
Ray
Lori
Liotta.
Petty, Ray Liotta was in it as well, and that was not one of his final movies. He did like 19 more movies since then.
I believe
Um,
Cocaine Bear was his last movie. I think that was his last movie.
I didn't see that movie. I didn't care to see it. I'm sure that a bear hopped up on Blow is definitely something that will not leave much to be desired.
I want to see it though.
What
It's on my list,
with
but
Clemente, exactly, with Clemente Day being tomorrow, the city of Pittsburgh is reveling in the honor and the memory of number 21. He is probably one of my favorite players ever. And if you ask me if I wanted to go back in time to see a player play, it would be Roberto Clemente. Um, but what did you think about this movie, Jeff?
yeah, I think I mean I like the movie. Um, You know, I think I said before, I'm a sucker for a road trip movie, which is what this ultimately is. So I love a good road trip movie. Um, I thought the kids were pretty good. Yeah, I don't really know much about Roberto Clemente other than what you kind of hear. I haven't like dug deep into him, so I thought it was kind of a good look. I'm almost kind of like Lou Gehrig. Of them. I know their accomplishments. I know they're one of the greatest players of all time, but didn't really know much other than that. And I know what teams they played for, and I knew that he died tragically in a plane crash, but didn't really know much about him and his character. But I really, yeah. But this movie really shows what a generous and amazing human being Roberto Clemente was. The way he would go out of his way to make other people's day. It seems like, and dies going on a humanitarian mission. Like, what an amazing person. It would have been great to see him, like you said, it would like go back and see him play. Just those clips. I've never really watched clips. I've seen the throws, but some of them, the slides, the hitting, the speed, man, he does look like, I don't know, he looks amazing out there. Like a little Ichiro, like I would say, with the arm and the running, but maybe not as fast, or maybe as fast. I don't know. I just think of the cannon in right field, or maybe like Vlad Guerrero with, maybe not as bulky. Um, but yeah, I thought it was a really good movie. It's an indie movie. I was kind of reading about it. It was made on $3 million budget indie movie that was supposed to be released at the 2008 All Star Game, but they held it back for another year, maybe 2009 All Star Game. And it was supposed to be a straight to DVD movie. Ray Liotta got a hold of the script, really liked it, and offered to do a little more financing so they could release it, in theaters. So that's really cool that Ray Liotta did that because he doesn't have a huge part in it. But he's obviously he's the narrator at the beginning and the end. Um, and But yeah, this one definitely got me. This one got me bad at the end. I was like, ball. I think I even yelled out, "Oh!" when he saw his brother. When the brother was alive at the end, I was like, I just assumed he died. And then they're like, Uncle Roger. I was like, oh my God, he's alive. I was like, I had to pause it. I was like, oh my God, he's alive. He's so great. So, I really liked it. Really got me at the end. Really tugged at the heartstrings. Like I said, I'm a sucker for a road trip movie. So, and I know Roberto Clemente is one of your favorites. So, what's your take?
Here I am wearing my Clemente
There,
Museum
there it
shirt.
is. Number
There I
two,
am.
one.
Um, you know what? This is the second time I've watched this movie. The biggest thing about this was it wasn't a story about, about him. It was a story about the 70s. Just
Yeah.
as he said it, he's like, oh, not another story, Dad. Like, it's like just another story. This is a story about the 70s. This is a story about one of the greatest weeks of his life. And to me, I looked at this movie because I wanted to see if there was a movie made about Clemente.
Mhm.
And, whenever I watched it, I found it on Amazon with ads, which is totally fine.
Yeah.
But I found it and I was like, okay, I like it. And I asked a couple of people if they'd seen it. Like, yeah, I watched it. I didn't really care for it. There are some things, there are some shaky camera angles in it that I didn't care for. But aside from that, I mean, the story moves. Everything in the story moves. The whole Clemente thing. I remember I went to a game one time after I had read his book, and I'll I'm gonna let you borrow that book because I think you'll really like it. But he dragging his
Yeah.
bat, and not wearing batting gloves and rubbing dirt on his hands, doing the neck thing. If you're listening to us on Spotify, I just did the neck thing, but it's very violent. He was one of the first players that wanted to take care of his body with massage therapy.
Mm.
He hunted for wood on the beach in Puerto Rico to make his own bats. He was one of the first
Wow.
players to use wood that he had found to make his own
Little,
bats.
little Roy
But then the
Hobbs
story,
there, huh?
correct. But then the stories about him and the human that he was. You got Chuck Ireland, Mr. Bush League, and he's talking
Bush,
about Bush. He's talking
Bush.
about he's talking about going to a game and talking about Stan Musial being his favorite player, and then all of a sudden he's like, we're at a game and somebody snaps the ball out of my hand, and
Oh yeah.
he comes over and he hands this guy the ball, and he's like, from that moment on, Roberto Clemente was my mom and I's favorite player. And
Yeah.
so to me, the number 21 for me was always synonymous because my mom passed on the 21st of September, which is next week. And then I start to figure out all the things like why he came up with the number 21. It's all the letters in his name add up to 21. Roberto Clemente
Oh.
Walker.
Huh.
Um, the stories that I've heard, I went to the All-Star game last year and I wore a Clemente shirt, and I had guys coming out of the woodworks to
That's
talk to
cool.
me about him. I went and saw him at the Coliseum, and he made this throw on a dime from right field to first base, and they showed one of those throws in the movie, and it's just you're in awe. It reminds me of that Yoenis Cespedes throw in
Uh,
Anaheim, where
Against
you know he
Angels. Yeah, I
picks
remember that.
where he picks up the ball in the left field corner, and he gets Howie Kendrick out. I feel like it was a snap play. Bam, bang bang play. He was that guy. He was a five-tool guy. And did you know that he was signed internationally by the Dodgers?
Oh, I did not. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How do you
So
end up with
he
the Pirates
was
then?
he was one of the first Rule 5 picks.
Oh,
Yeah.
interesting. I didn't know
So
that. Oh, wow.
Branch Rickey went from Brooklyn to the Pirates, ran the Pirates, and one of his scouts had gone to go look at Clemente when uh, their AAA team was in Montreal. They were the Royals.
Hmm.
But they would bring him out for batting practice and for fielding practice, but then they would put him on the bench. And the reason that the Dodgers signed him is because they didn't want the Giants to get him, because then the
Ah,
Giants would have Willie Mays and Roberto Clemente in the same outfield.
wow. Can you imagine?
And
Could you
yeah,
imagine that? Oh my God.
and
We're just gonna play
so
with two outfielders today. We're gonna do we don't
yeah,
even need a left
right.
fielder. Wow.
These guys can cover ground. Um, the soundtrack, I think I already talked about this. I couldn't find out what it was, but this soundtrack was exactly the kind of movie soundtrack that I fall in love with.
Yeah.
You're going through it and just that classic rock. It was beautiful.
That was great. It was perfect for that
Um,
movie. Like using music of the times. Again, that's an important thing for me. I think I can't remember which one it was. Was it League of Their Own? I was playing like modern music for an old
yeah,
timey. I hate that. I hate that so much. I think I mentioned that there. But if we're doing a timepiece, play the music of that time, and I appreciate that this one did. Yeah. So I like that. And I I want I want to just say, man, that Roger. I mean, I feel bad for that guy, but man, he was really started to piss me off, dude. Come on, man. Remember your meds, dude. Like you forgot your meds, and then he forgets his crutches. Like, bro, Mikey's just like, "Oh, you're killing me here, man."
yeah.
Like, dude, you got two things to remember really in your life: your meds and your crutches. Both those times on this trip, you forgot. Like, come on, man. We need you to. I can't do everything here, and help work with me here, buddy.
Work with me.
Work with me here.
Um,
And that was Lori
you
Petty,
know,
right? As that
that
cop?
was Lori
Was that
Petty.
that
Yeah,
was
as the
Lori Petty,
cop.
right?
Correct. Um,
That's funny. That's a little League of Their Own reference. Have you been to Pittsburgh?
that is one stadium that I haven't been to yet. It's probably one of those trips that I have to take where I have to devote a little bit more time to,
Yeah.
because when I do go on trips with my buddies, one of them works for an airline and we fly standby. And so if you're familiar with standby, you're at the mercy of the airline. If you're
Yep.
trying to get somewhere specific and they don't have a spot for you, you basically have to wait. And if
Yep.
you can't get a spot, you're just sitting there in the airport. So when we went in June, that was the plan. We wanted, had to go through Pittsburgh to get to Houston. Excuse me, had to go through Houston to get to Pittsburgh, and then we were going to go to Cleveland anyway. It wound up not happening,
Hmm.
and it's always been one of those stadiums that every year I see it, I want to walk across that bridge. I want to see that statue. I just want to soak it in. I
It's
just want
cool.
to soak it all in. Um,
I haven't
I'll
been
send.
to that stadium, but I've been to. I went to it for a football game, 49er game actually. So I went to the football stadium, but we went right by it and everything. It's really nice. It's we saw inside. They were having, I think, like a fantasy league there. You can tell like these guys are just like they signed up to play for a day or something like that. One of those camps, fantasy camps. But it's a really nice area, right on the river. Walking over those yellow bridges. Um, yeah, you'll love it. Like I said, I didn't go into the stadium, but just being on the outside, we rented some e-bikes and rode around it. And city's really beautiful. Pittsburgh, love Pittsburgh. Had a great time in Pittsburgh. People at the football stadium, the Steeler fans, they're a little rough, but overall, Pittsburgh is a great town. We had a great time there, and unfortunately, there wasn't a baseball game. Otherwise, we would have went. But yeah, love Pittsburgh.
There were some
Um,
things in this movie that stood out to me. What did you see that stood out to you in this one?
well, we mentioned the soundtrack and everything. I really like the quote. The quote from Roberto Clemente they mentioned: "If you have the opportunity to make things better and you don't do that, you are wasting your time on this earth." I think that really sums up what he was really all about and what you kind of get from this movie of what he thought living your life should be. Not about doing things for yourself, but helping others. I just really like that and can really appreciate how they emphasize that about his character and everyone they met had another story about Clemente. Like you said, how you were at the game and everybody came up. That's like almost like in this movie, everybody they met, from the cop at the beginning to the doctor to the New Orleans guy at the end. They all
Chuck
had a
Ireland.
Clemente. Yeah, there you go, Chuck Ireland. Sorry, I couldn't think of it. Everybody had a Clemente story, and all echoing the same kind of sentiment that he is just an amazing person. So I really like how that came through on this movie.
The one thing that stood out to me was the girl that they run into on the train when they jump the train from Oklahoma to Alabama. She takes his Pirates hat and gives him a Reds hat, and
Yeah,
they were rivals. I mean,
yeah,
Pittsburgh and Cincinnati are not that far apart,
yeah. The Big Red Machine,
and
right? Right during that, the Pete Rose days, right?
yeah, and the Reds beat the Pirates in the '72 championship series to go to the World Series, ending Clemente's career.
Oh wow,
We there was no idea that anybody would have known that that ended his career, but that was the last game he played was against the Reds.
that's crazy.
Um,
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't realize that. I had no idea about the 3,000 hit that they overturned it. and then so we had to go the next day. I had no idea about that. That was news to me. I like, wait, was that true? That really happened? I guess it must because it was on. They were using the actual clip, so
Yeah.
that was kind of cool to see that because that I had no idea about that. The day before he it was an infield hit, called it a hit, but then afterwards ruled it an error, so he didn't actually get it. So he had to come back the next day, which gave the boys enough time to get there. So,
Did you see the scoreboard on that one when they flipped it?
oh, I guess I didn't notice. No.
So they put the hit up in the hit column, but they put the hit up in the visiting column.
Oh,
And then when they switched it, they put the error in the visiting column.
oh, how
So,
funny.
of course, only somebody who's paying attention to it like we are is going to notice that. And, of course, somebody else can be like, how does this make a difference? Like, just because we're baseball guys and we keep track of everything.
That's right.
Um, the Clemente silhouette where he's walking through the tunnel, that to me, like, find me that guy and make a Roberto Clemente movie because that was beautiful. Um, Seymour Castle plays Poppy. He's
Hmm.
also in 61 as one of the writers.
Is he? Is he even there?
He's the older white guy who
Yeah.
he always like he does this with his
Oh,
nose.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I
Um,
feel like you see that guy everywhere. You just never know. Like he's one of those guys who's just in everything. You never know his name, you know?
right now we
One
do,
of
and
those guys.
a very Polish accent on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Oof.
you never
Very
know.
Polish.
Yeah, you never know what can happen tomorrow. Is one of the quotes that I got from Roberto Clemente that kind of sticks with me. But what baseball is all about is being a part of history. Have
Hmm.
you what's the most memorable sporting event you've ever been to, Jeff?
Memorable? Geez. I mean, so I was at the 1988 World Series Game 5 when the Dodgers beat the A's. I remember being there. I mean, I was only 9. Like I remember being there, and I know I was there because I had the tickets. I don't have them anymore. They got lost in one of my moves after college. But like, so I remember being there. I don't really remember much of the game, but I remember being there. Um, Memorable. I mean, that's definitely memorable. I'm trying to think what other memorable ones would I be at. I don't know. What about you? I might give me a second to think. I guess the games I've been to have been pretty normal. You know, I don't think I've ever been at a game where it's been like something crazy happened. Never been in a like game there was a fight or a Oh, I was at. Oh, I remember one. I was at Ricky Henderson's when he tied the record for most stolen bases. I was at that game also. That I do remember. I forgot about that. I can picture him stealing the base. I had those tickets too, with those World Series tickets that also got lost. I remember being at that game and everybody cheering, giving high fives. I do remember that. That was what 19. Oh geez, 90, 91. I can't remember now, but yeah, I do remember being at that one too. Those are the two probably memorable ones from my childhood that involve on the field things. I have
Yeah,
other memorable events that happen off the field, but we can say those for another
yeah.
day. What about you?
I was at the game that Kobe Bryant scored 81 points at.
Oh wow, nice.
That story is one of my favorite stories. I am, very much indebted to my friend who asked me to go just based on the memory alone. I was at the last home regular season game at Candlestick Park
Oh, that's
when
cool.
Navarro Bowman had the pick six against the Falcons.
Oh yes, the pick at the stick.
The pick at the
Yes,
stick. I was at Chipper Jones' last regular season series in Atlanta.
nice.
Um, that was memorable, but I think the two that top it are the Kobe game, the 81 game, and the pick at the stick.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember I made a point because he was my favorite, like, kind of current player I went to Barry Zito's last game in Angel Stadium, or he was with A's, but at Angel Stadium, it was the last game of the year and he was pitching. And I knew he wasn't going to be on the team anymore. I remember going to that game. He was always my favorite, A's player from the 2000s, especially that big three. I do remember going to that game too. But I think memorable, and this actually kind of falls in line here with what we've been saying about these guys. went to an Angel game maybe like 10 years ago, and my buddies came down. It was right after the All-Star break, going to the Angels A's game in Angel Stadium. I pick up my buddies from the airport, and we're walking to get their bags. And right behind us, my buddy's like, "Hey man, look behind us!" Right behind us is Mike Trout walking with like his girlfriend and a couple other people. We're all A's out. Like we're going to the game that night. Like he's coming in to go to that game too. And so I turn around. I'm like to my buddy, oh crap, dude, that's Mike Trout. He's like, yeah, dude, he was right behind us the whole time. And like, so I turn around, I'm like, hey, Trout, hey, what's up, man? A's, like we're gonna boo you. You're gonna see us booing you. And we're all kind of like doing that. And he goes a separate way to the baggage claim. We go ours, and I see him leaving. I say one more time, like, hey, Trout, we're gonna be booing you from the field. Don't forget us or something like that. Go to the game. Our games are right behind. Our seats are like right behind first base. And first inning, he gets a walk or a hit. Probably got a hit because he's Mike Trout. And he's amazing. And so we were like in row E. And so I stood up. I'm like, hey, Trout, LAX, Carousel 5. I told you I was going to boo you. He turns around while on base, taking his lead, turns around and gives me a one of these, like a what's up. That is really cool. Just to like take time during the middle of a game, like he's on base, to acknowledge that and to like, give and not be like, hey, F you guys. You guys, he was totally cool about it. I hate the Angels. I love Mike Trout for that. But, I think that kind of shows that he was always, down to, he's a good person too. Another person who stays out, maybe to his detriment, stays out of the trouble and out of the limelight and doesn't like seek those headlines. But those are kind of my memorable moments from games and stuff like that. So
This movie was filmed in Pittsburgh and in Los Angeles. The school that they filmed it at was Oswego High School.
I
You
was
can
wondering which one it
tell,
was. I couldn't tell.
yeah,
I didn't know if it was Torrance High. It kind of looked like Torrance. It kind of looked like Uni High in West LA. It was El Segundo,
it was Oswego. I can tell just based on the fact that they filmed so many episodes of Boy Meets World there too,
huh?
or just the outside of it.
The outside, yeah.
Yeah, the LA Coliseum was used when they were exiting Forbes Field or Three River Stadium, whatever stadium the Pirates were playing in at that time, because you can tell based on the tunnels because of the tunnel markers above
Oh,
the tunnels and then the gate. Um, and then the driving scenes. A lot of those are back in the Los Angeles hills,
yeah.
back in like Quartz Hill and Canyon Country. I remember as a kid, my grandfather would take the back way instead of taking the 14 freeway from his house to his sister-in-law's. We would go the back route, and a lot of that area that was used in filming looked extremely familiar, and wide open, nothing really around there. And I said, "Wow, that looks extremely familiar." And I'm almost certain that they used that setting for filming those driving scenes.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Good old Canyon
Um,
Country.
a little Canyon country. Was there anything else? Yeah, and I even wrote in my notes. I said, Jeff, you wanted your road trip movie. Here we are.
That's right.
Um,
Love a road trip movie. Sucker
I
for a
love
road trip movie. They're great. So many things can
right.
happen. They hit all the spots.
Anything?
There's a train ride. There's a hospital visit. It really had everything. Everything you want out of a road trip movie.
It really, yeah.
Bonding. It was good.
A lot of that brother bonding. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was definitely a fan of that. What
So,
where
so
does
is he
this
the third? Is
movie?
he the third Culkin brother? He's the youngest. Rory. 'Cause there's Rory,
There's
Kieran, and
seven of them.
Macaulay. There's seven.
There's
There's
seven of them. Yeah, I did.
there's.
Yeah, I looked that up. Where was it? There's Macaulay. There's God, where did I write that?
I know there's Kieran. He's in Succession, and then I guess there's Rory. There's four more, huh?
Yeah,
Must
there's
have some
four more.
sisters in there.
I think they're all brothers.
Wow,
Yeah, did I
that's
write that
crazy.
down in these notes? Rory Culkin is one of seven Culkins.
Wow. I kept thinking the whole time it was the one from Succession, Kieran, but I'm like, wait, that's not him. I looked it up, like, wait, that's yeah, Rory. I don't know what else he's been in. It's
Yeah.
a
All right.
yeah.
Now, in line with, was there any? Where does this movie rank for you, Jeff?
I think that's pretty neck and neck with Pride of the Yankees there. I like these movies, maybe Pride, maybe a little bit more, just because of the, um, the history of it and Gary Cooper being in it. Maybe that one's a little bit more. I think Chasing 3000 is, I guess for our audiences today, it's probably easier. It's an easier watch. It's about 30 minutes shorter. It hits all the beats real quick. It's definitely an easier watch, but I think it probably might fall just outside of um, the honorable mentions and top tens. I would say. I think it's right up there with probably the Yankees, though. Probably maybe a little bit step below.
which is understandable. This movie for me, it's honorable mention definitely because it's Clemente, because it tells a story that it's a true story wrapped around a ball player that not only you can't tell you can't put stats on a ball player who means more to baseball than just his numbers.
Hmm.
I mean, they have a whole day. The 15th of September is dedicated to Roberto Clemente. They have an award for the player on each team that shows the is the most
The most,
humanitarian.
yeah.
I don't know when this started, but the fact that they devote that to him, it should be an entire month in my opinion. And the only players that are allowed to wear number 21 are the players that have won the award
Oh,
on
is that
those
right?
days. Yeah,
No, I didn't
and
know that.
so it's not a number that's retired across baseball like Jackie Robinson, which he was the first Latin American player to make the Hall of Fame, and unanimously because the year after he died, it was cool. You're in. 3,000
Yeah,
hits on the dot.
they, they took that the 5 year rule off for him. Made a
Yeah,
special case for Roberto there, which is cool. Good. They shouldn't have to wait 5 years. Jeez,
no,
I like that. I like how they did that.
as did I. All right. Was there anything else about these movies that you wanted to discuss?
I think that's it, man. I think we got everything. Like I said, it's good. I like them both. I think there's good two solid entries there. I think both movies were better than the movies we reviewed talked about last week. Um, I think that's kind of four straight biography type style movies based on true story type movies we watched. So I would definitely put these two above the two that we watched last week.
Beautiful. All right. Next week, we're going to go with another bio movie, 42,
Voted two, Jackie.
Jackie. And then we're going to go with one that I'm sure you've seen. I'm sure that the mustache is going to ring a bell, maybe the OPs, but Mr. Baseball.
All right, Tommy
Yeah.
Selleck, Mr. Magnum PI
Tom.
himself.
Yeah. And Pedro Serrano's got some parts in this one, too.
Oh man, I haven't seen
Yeah.
that in so long. I probably last watched that was on VHS for God's sake.
It's such a classic old movie, but I like a lot about it, and we'll talk about that next week.
Cool. All I remember off the top of my head about that movie is him ragging on Cleveland like a bunch of times. I don't know why,
Yeah,
but I feel like he rags on Cleveland like a bunch in this movie. But we'll talk about that next week.
exactly.
All right.
All right, hang on.
Cool.
Sweet. That
Sweet. All right. We
dang
should do
it.
football here. We should do a like not next one, maybe the next one. Let's throw a football one in there since it's football season or something like that. Or yeah, switch it. Yeah, or do yeah something like that. Yeah, we were able to jump on right away and just go without you know. Yeah, I think so too.